Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a topic that's been quietly but steadily making headlines again. The renewed rise of COVID-19. We've pulled together quite a stack of sources for you, everything from the WHO, the global health organizations, right down to regional news outlets. And our mission is pretty clear. Cut through the noise, get you quickly well-informed on what's really happening globally and locally with the virus. We'll unearth some surprising facts and definitely give you some practical, actionable advice.
That's exactly right. Our goal here is to, synthesize the very latest info, try and spot the underlying patterns, and really help you understand not just what's happening, but crucially, why it matters. Why it matters for you, why it matters for, everyone around us. It's all about encouraging that, critical thinking as we navigate these shifts.
Okay, so let's pull back the curtain, dive into these sources. The very first thing that just undeniably jumps out is, a significant global uptick in COVID activity. We're talking about global test positivity for COVID-19. That's the percentage of tests coming back positive. It climbed from about 2% in mid-February 2025, all the way up to 11% by mid-May.
Wow, 11%?
Yeah, that's a level we really haven't seen since, July 2024. And the striking insight here isn't just the raw numbers, but what they're quietly revealing. COVID isn't just simmering. It's actively, maybe surprisingly, accelerating in some parts of the world.
And what's fascinating there really is the geographical distribution of this increase. It's not everywhere. It's primarily happening in the Eastern Mediterranean, Southeast Asia, and the Western Pacific regions.
Okay, so those specific areas.
Exactly. And in stark contrast, you look at Europe, Africa, the Americas, they're largely staying relatively low, still hovering around, say, 2 to 3% positivity.
Right.
And the WHO is being very clear about this. Their stance is COVID remains an ongoing health threat.
Still ongoing.
Definitely. And they're strongly urging vaccination, especially for those in at-risk groups. It's just a good reminder, I think, that while the virus might feel quieter for some of us, it's certainly not gone everywhere.
Right, that WHO warning is stark, and that geographical split is pretty intriguing. But, okay, within that broader picture, our sources seem to be pointing to something pretty specific driving this new phase. A brand new variant, right?
That's where it gets really interesting, yeah.
What truly grabs your attention in these reports is the emergence of this subvariant NB.1.8.1, or as it's being nicknamed, Nimbus.
Nimbus, yes.
Our sources show its incredibly rapid increase in prevalence. It was making up, about 2.5% of global virus sequences in early April, but by mid-May, that jumped to a staggering 10 to 11%.
That's a really fast climb.
Huge climb.
And Nimbus has indeed been detected in several regions now. You mentioned Southeast Asia, the Eastern Mediterranean, the Western Pacific. It's also popped up in parts of the U.S. Its most notable symptom, and this is one to really take attention to, is a severe sore throat, often described as a razor blade throat.
Razor blade throat. Sounds awful.
It sounds incredibly unpleasant, but crucially, while it can be very painful, the data isn't showing that it causes more serious illness compared to other Omicron subvariants.
Okay, that's important.
Very important. And thankfully, our current vaccines and treatments, they still seem to remain effective against it. That's really a key point to remember. Painful doesn't necessarily mean more dangerous in this case.
That is good news on the severity front. But it still makes you wonder, right, why this sudden surge now? What are the underlying forces at play here?
Well, our sources seem to converge on three primary reasons for this current rise. First, and this is a big one, waning immunity. Lots of people just haven't had recent boosters, so their protection has naturally faded over time.
Makes sense.
Second, we have these new variants, like Nimbus. They possess enhanced transmissibility and these immune evasion properties. Basically, they're just better at spreading, even among people who've had COVID or vaccines before.
Right, they're sneakier.
A bit, yeah. And third, something quite significant, I think, that really shifts our perspective. We're seeing unseasonal spread. COVID is no longer clearly seasonal.
Not like the flu.
Exactly. Surges can now occur even in summer or, say, monsoon periods in some regions. It's defying those previous patterns we might have expected. This unseasonal spread isn't just a detail. It's like a fundamental shift in how we need to think about this virus. It means our old ideas of flu season for respiratory bugs, they're kind of obsolete for COVID now.
Wow.
It's a real game changer for how we live with it long term.
That truly changes the playbook, doesn't it? Okay. So given these evolving trends, this lack of seasonality, the new variant, our sources also provide some clear, practical advice for you, the listener. Beyond just understanding these patterns, what should people actually be doing right now?
Absolutely. The advice is pretty consistent across the board. First, watch for symptoms, especially that persistent, really severe sore throat, that razor blade pain we talked about.
Right.
But also, the more familiar ones. Cough, fatigue,
Mm.
headaches, maybe some gut issues, fever, but which is often mild, by the way, and congestion.
Okay, so be aware of that whole cluster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second, get tested if you feel unwell. Even if it just feels like a mild cold or flu, it's worth doing COVID test.
Don't just assume it's something else.
Precisely. Third, stay up to date on boosters. This is particularly important if you're in a high-risk group, elderly or people with other underlying health conditions,
Yeah.
comorbidities, or even if you just live in an area where there's currently high transmission.
Got it. Boosters are still key.
Fourth, maintain precautions. It hasn't really changed. Masks in crowded indoor places can still help.
Yes.
Consistent hand hygiene, of course, ensuring good ventilation, and critically staying home when you're sick. Don't spread it around.
The basics still apply.
They really do. And finally, number 5, keep informed. Keep an eye on your local health advisories, check WHO updates periodically. So essentially, stay curious, stay aware, and don't just assume we're completely out of the woods yet.
Okay, that's really helpful, practical stuff. So let's quickly recap. We've just taken a deep dive, and we've seen how COVID-19 activity is definitely on the upswing again, both globally and regionally. It seems driven by new, more transmissible variants like this NB.1.8.1 or Nimbus. And while, thankfully, current vaccines still protect against severe disease, we are seeing reports of these milder but pretty painful infections like that razor blade sore throat. And health experts are really urging vigilance, testing, and keeping up with boosters as our main defenses.
Right. And all of this, it raises a really important question, I think, for all of us to consider. In a world where immunity, well, it naturally wanes over time, and viruses are constantly adapting, how does our own personal vigilance need to evolve? Especially now that those old seasonal patterns don't seem to apply anymore. What does it truly mean to stay informed when the landscape is, well, always shifting beneath our feet?
That's definitely something to ponder. A great final thought. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep that curiosity burning, stay informed, and we look forward to the next discovery with you.